What's up guys, Gave Productions here. I'm finally back, and long story short, I was just really busy this past semester and so I didn't really have much time to make this video. But that being said, this is the extremely long overdue review of the Galaxy Buds 2 Pro. Now on top of just being a review of these buds, this will also serve as somewhat of a long-term review of these Galaxy Buds as I have been using them for a few months now. Let's get into it. So while I'm sure most of you would have already seen an unboxing of these buds by now, I'm going to show it to you anyways. When you lift off the top of the box, you're immediately greeted with the Galaxy Buds 2 Pros themselves inside this paper wrap, which is nice to see instead of plastic, and we can take a look at the buds inside the case. As we can see, everything about the Buds 2 Pros is this soft touch, matte look and feel, which is really nice, at least compared to the glossy Buds 2s or the previous kind of matte feeling that you get with the Buds Pros and Buds Lives. Moving on, we have the USB-C to C charging cable, and inside the cable we also find the extra ear tips, which are the large and small sized ear tips. The ones that come pre-installed are indeed the medium sized tips. There is one more thing that I did forget to show in the box. It is the paperwork. So the paperwork is situated in the top half of the box, so it is there if you need it. Alright then, so let's get into the review. Let's first talk about the design of the case and the buds themselves, and how it's held up after about a few months of usage. Let's get the obvious out of the way. The Buds 2 Pro's case is essentially the same size and shape as the previous buds that came before it, since the Buds Live, so the Buds 2s, the Buds Pros, and the Buds Lives. And as I mentioned in my previous reviews of the older buds since the Buds Lives, I believe this to be a great thing. Long story short, this incentivizes third-party accessory manufacturers to keep producing existing cases, initially designed for the Buds Lives, for use with the Buds Pros, the Buds 2s, and now the Buds 2 Pro. This also incentivizes them to create new designs and new accessories, as they are creating the accessories for an expanding pool of customers, which is great for both Samsung and these third-party accessory makers. But there are of course some subtle design and material changes to the Buds 2 Pros which make them unique. The Buds 2 Pros case sports a more soft touch matte feeling, as mentioned, as compared to the Buds 2s and the Buds Lives and Pros, which had a more hard plastic matte case as compared to this soft touch matte case. The soft touch definitely helps with the grippiness of the case, and it does make it harder for it to fall out of your pocket or your hands, which is great. Inside the case is where we find the Sound by AKG branding, as you can see, and of course the two sides of your Buds 2 Pros. The Buds 2 Pros themselves sport the same feel and finish as the case, which is a welcome change over the Buds Pro's glossy finish despite the case being a matte finish. I would say that the design is somewhere a hybrid between the Buds Pro and the Buds 2s. But the Buds 2 Pros are also overall 15% smaller than the Buds Pros, at least according to Samsung. And I mean, they are definitely smaller to some extent, as they do protrude less out of your ears and are just smaller all around. The smaller size may come at some cost though, but I'll talk about that in a moment. In terms of fit, I feel like my ears have sort of a memory when it comes to earbuds. Kind of like how memory foam retains a certain shape for a period of time after removing pressure from it. So it again took my ears about 3 to 4 weeks or so to get used to the new shape of the Buds 2 Pros, and after about 3 weeks or so, my ears stopped hurting after about using the buds for an hour, and they were pretty much quite used to the new Buds 2 Pros. In terms of the seal though, I did find my right ear to struggle a bit more to get a proper seal, and it sometimes took some trial and error with how I was putting them in and twisting about. But I eventually figured it out, and it's pretty much muscle memory now. Also, in case anyone was wondering, I do use the pre-installed medium-sized tips, and the tips still come with their own dedicated mesh on top of the metal grill that you find in the buds themselves, which is very nice because then the dirt will be trapped on the mesh in the ear tip before it does reach the metal grill of the buds themselves. One last notable thing about the ear tips and the buds design overall is that it seems like Samsung has switched back to using more standard shaped ear tips as compared to the proprietary shaped ones of the original Buds Pros, which is definitely a welcome change. Overall, in the design and fit department, the Buds 2 Pros are definitely an improvement in almost every single way as compared to the Buds Pros. They look and feel good and are overall also less susceptible to falling out of my ears when talking or eating due to that new shape and the smaller design. Next, let's move on to the battery life. So this is where the smaller size may have affected the amount of battery life that these earbuds could have. They still sport the same 5 hours of listening time with ANC on, which is identical to the original Buds Pro. However, I feel like this could have been longer and improved if they chose not to decrease the size of the buds. At the end of the day though, it really is up to the customer as to which they would have preferred. In my opinion, I never had used my buds past 5 hours of listening in one sitting, so I would have personally preferred the new smaller size over maybe an extra hour of battery life, which is what we got with the Buds 2 Pros. But I can also understand how some people, would have preferred the opposite. One area where battery life has actually seen an improvement though is in the case. So the original Buds Pro was rated for about 13 hours of extra battery with ANC on. The Buds 2 Pros has increased that by about 5 hours, offering a rated 18 hours of extra battery life for your buds with ANC on right in the case, which is nice to see. Essentially, you're getting an extra charge out of your Buds 2 Pros as compared to the original Buds Pro. Since I already mentioned ANC, let's talk about that. So, according to Samsung, ANC on the Buds 2 Pros have been improved by about 40% over the Buds Pro. But I'm going to be honest, and I honestly didn't really feel the ANC being better. If I was to guess, maybe it was a bit better on the lower frequency sounds. Definitely not the high frequency sounds though, because the high pitch sounds more or less was still, being let in as much as the Buds Pros. So I'm not really sure how or where that 40% of improvement is. But if I was to guess, maybe it was probably just for the lower frequency sounds. If anything, actually, in my opinion, the Buds 2 Pros actually did feel a bit worse in terms of ANC, which could be a side effect of the new shape of the buds just not sealing my ears as well as the original Buds Pros. Also, side note, the Galaxy wearable app does have a function for you to test the fit of your Buds 2 Pros. So for mine, they do state that they fit quite well. So I'm not sure as to why the ANC is just not as good in my opinion. Ultimately, I'm quite confident that they are, more or less as good, if not maybe to other people, probably a little better than the original Buds Pros. But I wouldn't buy these buds solely for just better ANC. In terms of mic quality, these are how the microphones on the Galaxy Buds 2 Pros sound like. From my experience, people tell me on call that they can hear me pretty well even in an extremely windy environment or when there's a lot of vehicles and cars passing by on the roads beside me. But you can let me know down in the comments below how these microphones sound. In my opinion, they actually sound really good for a pair of wireless earbuds with no stem. Now let's talk about sound. So in short, the Buds 2 Pros sound amazing and are likely one of the best earbuds up at this price point. Again, disclaimer, I don't really have a pair of AirPods Pro, and so I can't really say for sure how well they stack up against the AirPods Pro, but against the original Buds Pros and the Buds 2s especially, these buds definitely sound better. So now that's not to say that the original Buds Pros sounded bad. Those already sounded pretty good on their own, but these are definitely a step up over the Buds Pros. To be clear, I tested these with both Spotify and Tidal, and the Buds 2 Pros definitely sounded better than the Buds Pros in both music apps. I'm not sure if this is confirmation bias, but I felt like the Buds 2 Pros had an even bigger difference in Tidal as compared to Spotify. And if it isn't confirmation bias, then this could be down to the fact that the Buds 2 Pros does support a higher quality Bluetooth audio codec as compared to the Buds Pros. So essentially, the original Buds Pros only supported AAC, SBC, which are two very standard Bluetooth codecs you find on a lot of wireless earpieces, but the Buds Pros also supported SSC. If you're not already familiar, SSC for the Buds 2s and earlier basically stood for Samsung Scalable Codec, and Samsung Scalable is a higher quality codec than both AAC and SBC, and actually even aptX, being capable of about 512 kilobits per second. But of course, that was nowhere near as close to Sony's LDAC, which is capable of about 990 kilobits a second. The new Buds 2 Pro also does support AAC, SBC, and SSC, but this time the Buds 2 Pro uses an upgraded version of SSC known as Samsung Seamless Codec. So the new version of SSC still supports 512 kilobits per second, but now also supports 24-bit audio. There are some articles out there saying that the Scalable also did support 24-bit audio, but there just wasn't any Samsung audio devices that supported 24-bit up till the Buds 2 Pros, and so it was basically not enabled, but I'm not really sure about that. Although it kind of does make some sense, because Samsung does say that phones that have Samsung Seamless are those that have One UI 4.1 and above, so it is possible that the new SSC is the same as the old SSC, just with 24-bit audio enabled. That being said, 24-bit audio is higher quality than 16-bit in terms of the bit depth, which means that the dynamic range of your audio is wider. Also, one more thing is that the new SSC does increase the sampling rate by a few hertz, which is also good as well. TLDR, the new Buds 2 Pros sound better probably because of the new drivers that are in the Buds 2 Pros, even though they are actually a bit smaller than the Buds Pros, which actually could explain something. I did notice that the Buds 2 Pros are a bit quieter at about the same level of volume as compared to the Buds Pros, but they still get more than loud enough in my opinion, so it's not really an issue to me at all. The better sound quality, as I mentioned, could also be due to support for the new SSC, which does allow the 24-bit audio and the higher sampling rate. So yeah, overall, audio quality on the Buds 2 Pros definitely better than the original Buds Pros. Lastly, before I conclude, let's talk a bit about the notable features that you get in the Samsung Wearable app. So the features that you find in the Wearable app for Samsung devices, because I don't really own any other Android devices, so for the Buds 2 Pros, they are pretty similar to that of the Buds 2s. You get your noise controls, the ability to turn on voice detect mode, which first made its debut on the original Buds Pros. Essentially, what voice detect is that it picks up when you're talking, and it will turn off the ANC and turn on ambient sound mode, as well as decrease the volume of your music. This is so that you can hear who is talking to you, and so that you can hear yourself talking as well. Personally, I never found this feature very useful, as more often than not, my issue with conversations is that people kind of speak to me first rather than me speaking to them first. So when they talk to me, voice detect mode doesn't turn on, and then I'll have to repeat, "Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. Do you mind repeating again?" And only then will the voice detect mode turn on, and it's just kind of awkward in my opinion. So I never really used voice detect mode. Another feature apart from voice detect mode is also 360 audio, which you can enable over here in the Wearable app. I also personally don't use it because, I don't know, it just sounds a bit weird, I guess. I don't know. You do also have the ability to slightly edit your touch controls, such as enable single, double, or triple tap, although these are already pre-assigned and you can't edit what they can do. But you can customize touch and hold to do one of few things. You can customize it to switch noise controls, so for example from ANC to ambient sound mode, or you can change it to enable Bixby instead of Google Assistant, so I don't know. You can also change it to do volume up or down. You can only pick one or the other, or to go to Spotify. You also do have your call controls in this section, and lastly you have your Find My Earbuds section, which is actually really cool because now each earbud can basically act as a smart tag. If you dropped your earbud somewhere, which I've actually already had done, other Samsung devices can actually help to geolocate your earbud for you via Bluetooth, just like how a smart tag or an AirTag would do. Of course, this only works so long as the buds has battery in it, so it isn't very long. Each bud, as mentioned, only has about 8 hours of battery without ANC, and so you're pretty much on a time limit in terms of tracking where your earbuds are. But it is a cool feature to have nonetheless. You also have your earbud settings, which gives you access to things like an equalizer with presets, however. So, in my opinion, you should just use the Samsung Music app with its fully customizable equalizer and adapt sound mode, which I have found to be pretty useful. In the settings, you also find other features like an earbud fit test, as I mentioned, to tell you how well the ear tips you installed seal your ear. Well, I think actually that's pretty much all I have to say about the Buds 2 Pros. Overall, definitely a pretty solid update over the original Buds Pros, and definitely, it feels like a pro version of the Buds 2s, which were already on their own a really good, not to say budget option, but just a really good pair of earbuds overall. I'll say that, the meaningful updates in terms of things like sound quality and supposedly the 40% better ANC does definitely make, you know, the Buds 2 Pros a worthy pair of earbuds, even for its pretty pricey 328 Singapore dollars, which is unfortunately a price increase of 20 Singapore dollars over the original Buds Pros, which unveiled at 308 Singapore dollars. But yeah, you know, they do go on discount pretty often, so if you do plan on picking one of them up, definitely do look for a sale of these earbuds so that you can pick one up at a discount. Right, I think that's all I have to say. So anyways, that's been it. If you like this video, do give it a thumbs up. If you dislike it, do give it a thumbs down. Let me know down in the comment section what you think about the Buds 2 Pros. Maybe you do have a pair. You can, you know, let me know your thoughts about the Buds 2 Pros as well. Please subscribe and share if you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.